will tell the Dutch it's in the interest of national security, but this entire saga shows you the reality of the situation. There is very little sovereignty in Europe. The EU will align with the US government's interests even if it wrecks their own economy. Honestly, it's the only card the US government has left to play. Sanction and restrict China in hopes the US can maintain its lead in semiconductor technology. But a new report titled "The Double-Edged Sword of Semiconductor Export Controls" reveals why this strategy will ultimately backfire. It argues that while the US implements these strict controls to stop China's access to advanced semiconductors, China is responding with impressive progress. By embracing innovative strategies, China is not just mitigating the impact of sanctions, but potentially reshaping the global semiconductor landscape. Just last week, it was reported that Xiaomi, one of China's leading tech brands, started the production process of 3-nanometer processors. This comes 1 week after China's largest and most important tech company, Huawei, announced a new patent for 3-nanometer technology. This article states the reality of the situation. China continues to move forward despite US sanctions. One of China's biggest advantages is that when a certain industry is given the green light from the government, that industry is almost certain to prosper as new companies, entrepreneurs, and resources come together in China's whole nation approach. There is no greater example of this than looking at China's EV industry. This chart highlights the number of sales from GM, Volkswagen, and Nissan, 3 of the most popular foreign auto brands in China. As recently as 2019, VW enjoyed a lucrative position in the Chinese market, selling over 4 million cars that single year. But fast forward to today, and sales for all foreign auto brands in China are falling off a cliff. This phenomenal trend was highlighted by Michael Dunn, a leading auto expert who predicts most of the world's biggest car companies will depart the Chinese market within the next 5 years. If you need proof to how advanced Chinese cars are, I want you to listen to the words of Ford CEO Jim Farley.
I don't like talking about the competition so much, but I drive the Xiaomi. We flew one from Shanghai to Chicago, and I've been driving it for 6 months now, and I don't want to give it up.
This video is truly phenomenal. I mean, can you believe the CEO of Ford has been driving around a Chinese EV in the United States for the last 6 months? What a testimony to the quality of Chinese products, but also a worrying sign for the US. This article from Business Insider says we're losing the one thing that keeps the peace between the US and China, and that is American companies selling its products to the lucrative Chinese consumer market. For years, companies like Nike, Starbucks, and Apple were the most popular brands in China. But as with cars, China's strategy is shifting from made in China, being the world's factory for foreign brands, to designed by China, where they've moved up the value chain and are the brands. Apple, the most dominant player in the Chinese smartphone market for years, has now fallen outside of China's top 5 smartphone brands, with all top 5 positions occupied by Chinese brands. Now, don't get me wrong, Apple still has plenty of potential in China. Their stores are literally spread all over the country. But all of these emerging trends play into a much larger story, which can be seen in this public opinion poll from one of China's top universities about the Chinese outlook on international security. An incredible 87.6% of Chinese citizens agree with the statement that the US is trying to contain China's development. This shows how current US policy towards China are antagonizing the Chinese population. How does this affect the future of China? Well, quite a lot actually. When Chinese people were asked if domestic affairs should take precedence over foreign policy and international affairs, over 64% of Chinese people responded yes. Ultimately, if the US government is going to sanction, pass tariffs, and block the rise of China, then China has no other option but to turn inwardly and develop their domestic market. In an ideal world, the US and China would work together because China is literally inventing the future of our world.